Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast. And now,
you're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
Here is your host.
And we're back. Very pleased that we have with us right now Rabbi Yisroel Kahan. He's a community leader, executive director of Ozrim Jewish Council. And we're very upset to find that some Jewish girls from New York were kicked off a plane in Amsterdam twice. It's plain wrong. It's plain anti-Semitism. Rabbi Yisroel Kahan joins us. He's an activist. Rabbi Kahan, good luck. Thank you for being part of our show tonight. Good, thank you. I know that you're in Askin. You're so much involved with the Jewish community, executive director of the Ozrim Jewish Council. So tell us about these 18 girls that were kicked off twice over KLM and Delta. What's going on?
So here's just to correct. Do you hear echo?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
So it's just to correct the record, they weren't kicked off twice, technically. The first time they were not allowed on. So basically, this is Rabbi Sternbuch's trip to Ukraine, to Makoim Sagdoshim. You had a group of about 55 or 56 frum girls from mostly New York, some New Jersey, some Canada, who went on this trip. And they're coming from New York, they had to take two flights, connecting flights, which meant New York, Amsterdam, Ukraine, and the same on the way back. So they, on the flight to Amsterdam 2 weeks ago, they were given a hard time by the flight crew. And we all know, since 9/11, airline crews were given, high power. Now with COVID, even more so. For the most part, they do an amazing job. It's a stressful job. But all of us, especially frequent flyers, have encountered those who go on a power trip and use their authority to just take it out on people. It's not the first time people were thrown off flights with babies, with special needs kids, from people, non-from people, it's all across the board. But this particular group was having a hard time on the flight from New York to Amsterdam. They landed Bashulam, everything was fine. They continued to Ukraine. Thursday, they landed back in Amsterdam to connect to the flight back to New York. And it is there where when they came to board the second flight, 18 of the 56 girls were not allowed onto the plane. So, when you're boarding, they board you in groups and everything. The chaperone was already on the plane, and being responsible as she is checking everybody's in the seat, everybody's okay, and there are people missing. She says, what's going on? She finds out that they're not on the plane. She wants to leave and see what's going on, and they don't let her off, because once you boarded an international flight, there are,
you can't leave, right?
Exactly. They threatened to arrest us. She said, you can arrest me. I have 18 girls who are my responsibility, whether they're teenagers, whether they're adults, technically it doesn't matter. She managed to fight her way off. This Borough Park woman, very, very brave of her to manage to, responsible, but she came up, she stayed there with them, and the plane took off with the rest of the crew, with the group, and these stayed behind. So everybody started making phone calls. Some people live in Borough Park, some in Willersburg, some in Monsey. The heavy lifting, I have to say this before we go any further, Rabbi Moshe David Niederman from UJO did the heavy lifting, and he really started, the ball rolling on this. He reached out to Senator Schumer, to Congresswoman Velasquez. There's Askin and Baba, Rabbi Rosenfeld, who reached out to, I believe, Simcha Eichenstein, Assemblyman Simcha Eichenstein, who reached out to Congressman Meeks. Everybody started making phone calls. I reached out to Senator Gillibrand's office, and we started trying to see what can happen. In the meantime, I reached out to some contacts in Europe, and I was put in touch with Askin in Amsterdam, and I got a hold of an attorney who lives in Holland and Amsterdam, and he right away went down, a father and son attorney, Mr. Lowenstein. They went down to the airport to try and work out the legal issues. They were going to be charged $3,000, 2,000 euro.
Who was going to be charged? Who was going to be charged?
These 18 girls.
They were going to be charged each?
Right, each of them. So it's 2,000. I think it was 2,000 euro, but about $2,500 to $3,000 is what they were going to be charged, plus a fee for the luggage, and they in order to release the luggage, they couldn't go into Holland either because they didn't fill out immigration papers for Holland. They were technically transients. They were just catching a connecting flight. And with COVID, everything gets even more complicated. Basically, you had one chaperone with 18 girls, 17, 18-year-olds, stuck in the airport, no kosher food, nowhere to go, just basically captive there. Now, the funny part is, though, that when you look at the list of the 18 girls, they're all in alphabetical order from the letters A through K. So I know KLM released a statement saying that they're very strict with COVID rules and everything else, but it's very interesting that you have 18 girls who violated the rules, allegedly violated the rules on the first leg of the trip, and they again violated the second time. Nobody from the letters M, nobody from the letters, no Würzburger, it's very interesting when you have that. KLM responded saying, this was one group setting. So this was basically that the tickets were made in bunches, so this 18 were a bunch. So that's not an answer. That just makes it that raises the question even more. So you're telling me all 18 were not cooperating? Or some of them...
Don't they have to prove it? And on whose say-so, Rabbi Kahan, do they say 18 people is a lot of people? So they're saying each and every one of those 18 girls in alphabetical order didn't cooperate in what sense? Don't they have to document it? They just throw them off without just say so?
Twice. And on 2 occasions.
So what does KLM and what does Delta say about this?
So here's the thing. KLM, on the flight from Kiev to Holland, they were giving the girls a very difficult time. You can't eat now. It's not mealtime. Zev, you've flown. Have you ever heard of such a thing, mealtime? I can take out my kosher tuna sandwich and eat it whenever
at any time, right? Absolutely.
But and I'll be honest with you. We have teenagers. We know how kids are. The first minute you think, maybe the kids didn't behave, but then wait a minute. Step back a second. 18 girls, all of them, whether it's alphabetical order or whether it's one group booking, it doesn't matter how you slice it. It's very suspicious when you have a group and all of them violated, or are you taking them all off because some of them violated?
Now, do they have any footage? Are there any footage? I know in certain past flights we've covered where there was footage of where they took religious Jews off the plane where people filmed it. Anybody film the situation?
So, yes, there are some stuff. Well, first of all, the security, I don't know if he's the head of security, there's a picture of him. He is definitely in a supervisory position. He refused to show his picture, and he was kind of jeering the girls, saying, "You're not going to get onto the plane. You're not going to get onto the plane." And then the following day, when they were booted from the plane, actually removed from the plane, he was there again. He, at some point, held onto their passport, said that if you're going to, you have to delete all your pictures. So there are many pictures that were deleted. Thankfully, some of them took pictures on their smartphone, which we were able to retrieve from the trash, including, and I'll get to this to the second flight, some footage where there's testimonial from non-Jewish travelers. So the flight left. Congresswoman Velasquez contacted Delta, and they were very gracious. The CEO, Ed Bastian, his office got right onto it. Since Delta and KLM have a partnership, they operate some joint flights, and the office of the CEO called to these 18 families and made them bookings for the following day. Now, me personally, we already had worked with the families to get myself and others to get them onto a United flight earlier. My personal opinion was, fool me once, shame on you. You're not going to, fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not going to give you that opportunity. But again, you have kids stuck in Europe. Parents spent a lot of money on tickets and the tour. Right now, they were going to have to buy new tickets with United. It just was simpler. Delta said, we'll absorb everything, no penalties, no fees, no change, anything. We'll just put bookings for you. We'll reserve the seats for you and Shulam al Yisroel. So parents made a decision, you know what, let's go by that. I'm just a shliach for them. I'm a mediator. I'm not making decisions for them. So they decided not to take the United bookings, which was approximately 9 o'clock Friday morning. They took the Delta booking. When they get to the airport, they were in the airport overnight. When they get to book the second flight, the same security guy was there giving them a hard time, just being, on a power trip. They get onto the plane. We were in touch with them. There were other issues that needed to be sorted out. Finally, I'm talking to the chaperone. We're boarding. Security was giving some people issues, including her. In the very last minute, everybody's in the plane. My wife says, can you go to sleep now? It's already 4:15, like a niggas genig. Shine, Baruch Hashem, the night's over. The girls are coming home. 5 minutes later, the phone rings again. I said, Oy vey, what's now? She called me. They said, they're deplaning us. I said, what's now? One of the girls was sitting next to a woman, non-Jewish woman, not affiliated with the trip, who was traveling to New York with her son. This woman is from Long Island. She was traveling with her son, but they couldn't put them together. So she asked a girl one of the from girls from the group, plus another passenger, do you mind to swap with me so I can spend the time with my son? We've all done that. You're sitting next to the window. I want to sit next to my son. It's a normal thing. It's legal. It's 100%. Why not? Make a Kiddush Hashem. Be a mensch. Swap seats. The minute they swapped the seats, like stewardess made a beeline to the girl, you're off the plane. You violated rules. We cannot trust you that you're going to behave. You're off the plane. Last chance. So the attorney told them, do not leave the plane. Do not get off the plane unless they deplane everybody, because then you have no choice. But just yourself, do not stay seatbelted, stay in your seat. So they had no choice. They had to deplane the entire flight, everybody off the plane. In the meantime, Rabbi Rosenfeld was reaching out. I called to the assistant of the Delta CEO, and he was reaching out to Senator Schumer's office. But it's 4 o'clock in the morning. We're just trying, what can we do? We also had, I have to mention this, some of the journalists in Eretz Yisrael, one of them reached out to me and put me in touch with a lobbyist in Knesset, Miss Moses, Heidi Moses, and she put me in touch with some Stadlunum in Amsterdam. So everybody's working, but it's 4 o'clock in the morning. You're not reaching anyone. Finally, this assistant calls back Rabbi Rosenfeld, and they start going back and forth. For an hour and a half, the plane was delayed, but in the end, they put everyone back onto the plane, with the exception of these 18 girls and the chaperone. Baruch Hashem, being this crazy hour and not having slept, Hashem put this, machshuva in my mind, get a testimony on video. So I asked the chaperone, asked the woman if she would make a statement, and she said, absolutely, and I actually tweeted it out. And she put the statement out there. The girl said her part. The woman was allowed back on the plane despite violating the rule. The other non-Jewish passenger who had also been involved in the swap was allowed back in the room. It's only these 18 girls and the chaperone.
It's outrageous, Rabbi Kahan. I want to come back. I want to continue our conversation. Rabbi Yisroel Kahan is documenting. He's executive director of the Ozrim Jewish Council. How 18 Jewish girls were forced off a plane. KLM and Delta supposedly on violating the rules, but this is plain discrimination, plain wrong, plain anti-Semitism.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Talkline radio and TV with Zev Brenner is just phenomenal. Everybody concerned about the Jewish community should listen and watch. He has the best guests. He asks the most interesting questions. He's always so well prepared. It's talk radio and television from a Jewish point of view at its very best.
To advertise on the Talkline network and Talkline's email and social media blasts reaching over 70,000 people, please call 212-769-1925, extension 100. That's 212-769-1925, extension 100. Or email info@talklinenetwork.com.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now your host.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Zev Brenner. Rabbi Yisroel Kahan is with us, community leader, executive director of Ozrim Jewish Council, and we are looking at how KLM and Delta grounded, expelled, threw off 18 Jewish girls, wouldn't let them on to their connecting flight to New York. And we're taking some of your phone calls. Let's go to Stan in Forest Hills. Your question for our guest. Go ahead, Stan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm having difficulty understanding him. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly happened. I'm sorry. His explanation to me, I don't understand the reasoning they were taken off. I don't understand. First of all, let me ask this question, because there's really two. Does this have anything to do with COVID and wearing masks at all?
Rabbi Kahan.
What?
I'm going to let Rabbi Kahan respond to you.
So there's two flights that we're talking about. The first flight is the final leg of the journey, KLM flight from Amsterdam to New York, where they were not allowed on, supposedly because they were not cooperating. They didn't give them a reason. They didn't tell them why they were taken off. But on the prior flight, a few hours earlier, when they were traveling from Ukraine to Holland, the flight crew was driving them nuts, saying, "Oh, adjust your mask, adjust your mask. You can't eat now. Why can't you eat now? I can eat whenever I want. You can choose to serve meals whenever you wish, but you cannot tell a passenger you can't eat." So,
okay, let me ask this question of you, sir. Now I understand because I'm trying to figure out if it had to do with serving food. That they serve food on. First of all, KLM is not known, as far as I know, I've traveled, as anti-Semitic in any way. I never heard any incidents with them before. But it's possible that they serve food. Again, this is you know better than me. They serve food on the airlines, and they serve it at a specific time. And it's possible that they didn't adjust to what KLM was going to do, and so KLM figured the 18. I don't know.
They're entitled to take out their own tuna sandwich and eat it whenever they see fit. KLM cannot dictate when you can eat or not eat.
Is that what this is about, dietary situation? Because I didn't understand initially. Is that what this is about?
We don't know what this is about. And again, this doesn't
You're
mean
just telling me that it is.
KLM, or I'm telling you a story that happened.
Well, what is the fact?
But he's telling you the facts. These 18 young ladies, in alphabetical order, were thrown off the plane. They were not allowed to continue their journey, supposedly on the theory that they, or at least what they're claiming, is they didn't follow the rules. And the question that Rabbi Kahan has raised is, how could 18 girls in alphabetical order, what rules were they breaking? And they came up with all kinds of concoctions, is that they want a couple of them change seats, or they're eating when they shouldn't be eating. This is all a smokescreen.
On the second flight.
I'm sorry, what?
Changing seats was on the second flight.
On the second flight, okay.
The changing seat was on the second flight, where they were ready. This was already organized by Delta corporate headquarters. They rebooked them on a Delta flight. They were already sitting in the plane, ready to back away from the gate, push back, and they were taken off and they were told, because you swapped seats with a passenger. So have you ever swapped the seat with a passenger on the plane? Your wife is at the window,
and you shouldn't be thrown off for that. Of course, I understand that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
but let me ask this question. Go ahead.
There's testimony from a person on the plane who I tweeted it out, saying that she asked the girl. She's the one who initiated, but she was allowed back on the plane, as was the other gentleman who also was part of this terrible scheme of swapping the seat on the plane. There's other people who I've spoken to who were on the plane who reached out to me after, and have reached out to Hamodia, and I have to give a shout out to Hamodia. Reuven did a fantastic job, because other than my tweet, there was some Chavre Charedim brought it to light, Channel 12, but otherwise it was non-existent until over Shabbos now, when Fox and Business Insider and others started covering it. So thank you, Zev, for bringing this to the attention.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead, and then we're going to move on.
Did KLM make any statement as to why they did it? Have they made any statement at all?
So KLM, prior to understand, there was 4 trips, one to Holland, next one to Ukraine, then return trips. They were not allowed on the 4th part of the journey. And the 4th leg, they were banned from the plane. They were banned. There was one KLM security guard on the ground who was very, very obnoxious and very rude to the girls, and he was refusing to show ID. He threatened to confiscate the passports until they delete all footage. You're entitled to take video.
On what grounds can he tell people not to delete their footage? What authority does he have?
Because he has a big flashlight and he's at the airport and you're at his mercy.
But have they made a statement? Did they make a statement and saying why they did it? You're telling me you haven't said they made it. Have they made a statement about this whole situation?
So prior to the Delta incident, which was the time when they were taken off the plane,
right.
After they were banned, and on Friday they sent out a message saying safety is a top priority, and there's a group of girls who didn't follow crew instructions on board. So when they arrived to Amsterdam, they were cautioned and said that they will not be allowed to, and that's why they were not allowed back into the plane. The 18 girls, the one group, the A2K, the not eating when they want to eat because the crew said it's not a designated eating time, the booting them for swapping the avera, swapping seats with someone else. None of that is explained. And when you have a security guard who refuses to show his name and threatens passport confiscation to delete footage and kept on telling them, I told you you're not going to get on the plane, you're not going to get onto the plane, they have a lot of answers now.
Has KLM apologized or made any statement? You're still not responding.
Stan, he said that they gave that blanket state. They didn't give a real situation here.
Well, I don't know. I'd like to hear their response. It sounds to me like this has happened. By the way, I think that there may be some overtone of anti-Semitism, but there have been more incidents on planes over the last year, hundreds, from different airlines related to passengers and so on. I'm not saying it isn't. It may be anti-Semitism.
There's a lot of anti-Semitism. But let me ask. We're going to move on. But sure. Thank you, Stan, for your call. But the problem is in alphabetical order. They kick people off. It's not logical, except if you want to kick people off.
What do you mean alphabetical order?
They kicked off 18 girls from A to B. Anybody, let's say from A to the letter M. So if your name was Nuremberg, you wouldn't have been kicked off. But if your name was Goldberg, because you followed in alphabetical,
and they actually, that's what they thought of to take.
They took off by alphabetical. That's what.
That's the fact.
I'm asking. I don't know. I'm asking.
That's what Rabbi Kahan is saying.
All of the 18 girls' last names begin with the letters A through K. Nobody with the letters A through K were allowed on, and nobody with the letters L to Z were kicked off.
That's a fact.
So KLM tried to say that this was done in group bookings, and they threw off the entire group. So let me ask KLM a question. If you had a group of Muslims traveling and one Muslim misbehaved, would you dare throw off the entire group? Absolutely not. You wouldn't do this to African Americans. You wouldn't do this to Latinos. You wouldn't do this to Chinese. We're in a world now, a woke society, where we're bending over backwards to accommodate everybody and anybody except Orthodox Jews.
Exactly.
Free play.
Stan, thank you for your phone call. By the way, have you consulted a lawyer?
Yes, we actually had an attorney in Amsterdam, but we have some lawyers that I've reached out to, and there's going to be meetings in conjunction with Rabbi David Niederman, who again, UJO. I have to give them credit. They do a lot of great work, and he was up at night. His office, his staff. They really blew this open and got the attention.
I think they should be sued. They should be sued for harassment. Let's go to David in Borough Park. Your question for our guests. Go ahead, David and BP.
Yeah, hi, Zev, and your guest. First of all, before I get to my main point, Zev, I'm sorry to say this, but you're giving Stan from Queens way too much.
David, you're not running the show. We have an open forum, and Stan can voice his opinion. You may not agree with it. I may not agree with it. We're doing anyway. You want to make your point because we're almost out of time. Go ahead, your question, Rabbi Kahan.
Okay, my points are a couple of things. First of all, I want to say thank you to all the Askanim and everybody that tried to reach out on an emergency basis to all the politicians and so on. But my point is that's not enough these days. That's not enough. That's enough for the immediate problem to take care of the girls to come home. Yes, you have to reach out to all contacts in the government and so on. But on a regular basis, to teach these airlines a lesson, just like Israel is teaching Ben and Jerry's and Unilever a lesson that they cannot continue doing this, you have to do more drastic measures. make big demonstrations against Delta and KLM, take a caravan of cars and drive through the Delta terminal and in let's say JFK and stop traffic there. You have to bring it out into the open. You have to teach these guys a lesson. It's not enough these days just to do it through Askanim and so on. You have to get out this information, that the press should cover it and put all these airlines, this is not the first time, not the second time, not the third time, and put all these airlines in a bad light that are doing this to Orthodox Jews, they'll never do again. And your guest was right. They would never do this to Muslims. They would never do this to Black Americans, and they would never do this to Chinese.
Exactly, and that's what we got to speak out.
Orthodox Jews are doing it.
Rabbi Kahan, you're okay. Right. David, you made your point. David, you made your point, and I'm going to let Rabbi Kahan respond to you. Go ahead, Rabbi Kahan.
Okay, so it's interesting that I was saying to someone this Shabbos, we had incidents with Jewish people, with non-Jewish people, and we spoke about the power trip that some airline employees have taken. It's funny that when the ice cream incident, everybody threw out their ice cream, stopped buying it, stopped stocking it in their stores. I said, how many? I bet you that tonight, as we speak, there are people who are flying or who have bookings with some of these airlines who have acted very inappropriately and refused to apologize to Florida just because it's cheap. Absolutely. If Frum Jews would get together, we would absolutely make a statement. However, the way I see it, Yaakov Avini said, "L'doyin l'tfila l'melchoma." You have to do a little bit of all. Delta, I have to give them credit. They stepped up to the plate and tried to do the right thing. Whatever happened at 4 a.m., you have to understand it was 4 a.m. in New York when this was transpiring in Holland. I trust, and we have to give them a chance to do what's right. Okay? If they don't, then yes, we need to take it to the next level. And we have to protest. We have to do whatever we can do with our elected officials. Anybody who is a diamond medallion or any other level of Delta executive club should reach out and send a letter saying, hey, I fly 1 million miles. I have 20 million miles in my account. I demand an answer. We want an official apology. This is how we do stuff. Before we go rough, before we go with a fight, with a boycott, everything, people, travel agents, corporate accounts, stuff like that, who have partnerships with them, can make a huge impact.
Anyway, Dave, thank you for your phone call. Listen, you first got to go through the regular channels, but here's the thing, though, is that I'm not sure if a boycott would help unless you get a lot of people, but maybe going after the stockholders, which maybe in the case of Unilever might be more effective than even just a boycott of Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
Right, and the other thing, if I would mention, Zev, again, as I said before, this whole thing started with a tweet. And when I got the first phone call, I was a little skeptical. We were all teenagers at a point. We know how kids can act. You want to be done like Chiz, but you don't want to go all out guns blazing without knowing the facts. So I did a lot of research, spoke to parents, family members, siblings, the chaperone, and others, and we realized we had something which, even if there was some minor violation of something of COVID, there's ways to deal with it. You don't punish 18 people. You don't group them together, and remove.
And it's also Rabbi, collective punishment. Let's say that 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 did something wrong. Let's say, for argument's sake, I'm not saying that they did, but if you kick out 18 in alphabetical order because they're part of a group, I never heard of you kicking off a group if a few people did something wrong. This whole thing smells very, very badly.
And the same thing also goes to our, you have Ahmadiyya that covered it. They've had it online. They had it in print the next day. The Jewish sites do have an impact. Whether, Ami reached out on Friday. They want to cover the story. Each and every Jewish media outlet, yourself, Zev, whether it's on live talk shows or it's in print or it's in digital and social media, anybody who has a Facebook account, anybody who has Twitter, or I don't know, these shimas that they have out there.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn is very good because that's also a business account, and people should bombard them. Absolutely. What else can people do as we close out, Rabbi Kahan?
Just be mindful that we are Jews, we are in Gulas, and, always try to do what's right. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have the vaccine passport on my phone just because when somebody accuses me, and they're wrong because they wouldn't do it to anyone of a different ethnic group, I can say, hey, just for your information, here's my vaccine proof, but not that it's your business. So when you're traveling, we have needs, we are different, we need to daven, we need to have a unum, we need to get off in time because Shabbos and other stuff. Just be a little bit, on the low key, on the down and low, and try to swallow bite it. But if you see something like this, which appears to be blatant anti-Semitism by at least some employees there, we need to make it known and not let young girls be after, on the airline.
And I said we do have to speak out if we see it. Listen, if you let anti-Semitism fester, it doesn't get better, it gets worse. So you got to nip it in the bud. So if they did it to 18 girls this time, they got away with it, they will do it to 36 girls the next time or 36 Jews the next time. So all these airlines, all these companies have to put on notice that Jews are not fair game.
Oh, and by the way, before I forget, they were blacklisted. These girls are blacklisted now for Delta and KLM. On top of this, to add insult to injury, if they want to book a flight now, their names are banned.
Rabbi Kahan, I definitely recommend a lawsuit to sue the airline based on discrimination. And if you get some of the lawmakers to speak out, that's great. But I think a lawsuit is in order here. You can wait the next couple of days and see what they say. But it just seems to me that if the facts are the way that it looks like, that you're kicking them off in alphabetical order with you have to have proof also. They can't just say, okay, I kick you off because you did. Well, what do they do? Proof. Do they have witnesses? It's just something which is arbitrary. And yes, they can't fight it when they're on the plane, but now that they're off the plane, their legal rights should not be violated. Rabbi Yisroel Kahan, I want to thank you.
Everything is on the table.
Yes. Everything's on the table.
Everything is on the table, including a lawsuit. And before we go, I wanted to thank you, Zev, and thank you, Ezra, for putting us together. Because, as you said, we cannot ignore it. We cannot let it fester and grow worse. And, in the right way, in the proper channels, we need to challenge it. If it means a lawsuit, absolutely. Thank you for bringing this to, the attention. And
good. I'm going to squeeze in. I'm going to squeeze in one last phone call. Shlomo, I believe from Brooklyn. You have a quick question or comment for our guest. Go ahead, Shlomo.
Hello?
Yes. Shlomo, are you there? What's your question or comment?
That the reason why they were banned is because they heard one side. In Judaism, we say, B'tzedek tishbot avisecha. They heard the side of that vicious anti-Semite. They heard his side. And now they have to hear the truth. And the truth is that they should give 2 tickets to each girl and apologize publicly. And put an ad in the paper, we made a terrible mistake, and not even mention anti-Semitism. We kicked these people off, and it's a terrible mistake. They were coming from Israel. Religious Jewish girls were coming from Israel. We kicked them off. We give each of them 2 round-trip tickets to Israel for them or their family. In other words, they heard one side only. That's why they're acting that way. They didn't hear the truth. They heard sheker.
No, because listen. What part of happens here is when even if an employee is wrong, the parent company likes to protect their employees. That's what it smacks like.
To say. Not only was he wrong, but he lied. He lied. Whatever he said to them, he said all the girls did this. They screamed. They took his side. So they have to have an objective hearing with maybe even a Jewish judge from New York or from Holland listening in and hear both sides, and then they have to apologize.
I have no problem with that. Okay, thank you for your phone.
You can't harm the airline too much because people have to use those airlines.
No, but the airlines can't get it. They have to know that they have to be respectful of Jewish customers.
Right. Was made. We got this information, and this person who gave us this information, he's going to be docked his salary for 3 months. Don't punish him too much. He'll become a very big anti-Semite and hurt you.
They're anti-Semites. They're anti-Semites already. If they did this, they're anti-Semites already. Anyway, I appreciate your phone call, Rabbi Yisroel Kahan. Thank you for being with us. Look forward to having you back again. Thank you for your askanas. Thank you for your leadership in this situation. And Rabbi Kahan is the community leader, executive director of the Ozrim Jewish Council. People want to learn more information about what you do. How can they contact you?
Our office number is 845-613-4111. They can send an email, ykahan@oizrim.org. And Thank you, Zev, for the opportunity. I get to wach and
Good gebench to you, and thank you for your efforts. Rabbi Yisroel Kahan here on the Talkline Network.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thank you for listening to Talkline Communications Network, America's leading Jewish radio and TV network since 1981. For continuous, non-stop Jewish broadcasting, please go right now online to TalklineCommunications.com. For more information on all of Talkline's Jewish radio and TV shows, please call 212-769-1925 or email info